Buenas noches. Good evening. Shalom. I'm glad to be in beautiful New York City once again. I wanted to, first of all, thank everybody here and for the invitation to share a few moments with you. It's important that we discuss this in a civil manner and that we talk about the truth about this immigration situation. And I want to find out in the audience, how many Native Americans are here? How many 100% Native Americans that are indigenous, that could trace their roots to the tribes that were here thousands of years ago? You know, maybe I might be the only one, but I gotta admit, only on my dad's side of the family, 8,000 years, and on my mom's side of the family, I can only go back to the 1600s. And so it's just to kind of say that even though this is a great country, and I love the United States, I'm a US citizen, I was born and raised in San Diego, my family came from Mexico, and it came like most Mexican families. It came legally. And it came like most immigrants come to this country looking for a better opportunity. And it was driven by economics. My dad's job had an opportunity in San Diego, and we moved to San Diego, and I was born in San Diego. It's very important that we look back in the history of this great country, and I don't think that we've had a lot of welcoming to immigrants, especially if you look at it from the Native American point of view or the people of color point of view. I don't see very much diversity, but we're all the same race, the human race, and I think it's important that we treat each other in such a manner. And Cesar Chavez was mentioned a moment ago. They're one of our biggest supporters, the United Farm Workers. And I ask you in your prayers to pray for Elena Chavez, who was diagnosed with colon cancer just a couple of days ago, Cesar Chavez's wife. And they're big supporters of our movement, and they've helped us in the efforts that we're continuing to have more humane laws. Ethel Kennedy, Robert Kennedy's wife, is really the one that inspired me to come out of the shadows when we started our work as Border Angels back in 1986. And you'll see some information on some flyers I have in the back for our all-volunteer organization. What we're best known for is putting water in the desert. Putting water in the desert to save people's lives. But that's not the only thing we do. We also were instrumental in the massive demonstrations last year, which had 3.5 million people take to the streets and say we want humane and comprehensive immigration reform. We don't want to have any more deaths on the border. We don't want to have this hate radio and hate television that many of you are familiar with that's really sprung up in the last several years. Border Angels is a nonpartisan, faith-based organization, and what our mission statement says, if I was hungry, did you give me to eat? If I was thirsty, did you give me to drink? Period. In October of 1994, the United States government decided to build a wall between the United States and Mexico. We protested against this wall. What the government said is going to stop the flow of migrants. And I said, why would it stop the flow of migrants? The United States invaded Mexico in 1846, took half its territory, and there was a treaty that was signed, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, where people were supposed to be able to go back and forth freely. That was never honored. But there's nobody alive today that was there when the United States invaded Mexico in 1846. What country has not committed sins? Every country. Every country has racists, every country has people that misinform the public. So let's stick to the facts, and I want to tell you a couple of stories. In October of 1994, the government put up this wall called Operation Gatekeeper. And it's been estimated by the flyer that I have in the back that 4,500 people have died in the last 13 years. And that's an estimate according to the Border Patrol. But I think the number is closer to 10,000 people. Whether it's 4,500 or 10,000, people should not be dying because they're coming here for a better opportunity. Lucrecia Dominguez was one of those people. She crossed with two of her children, Jesus and Nora. Jesus, a 15-year-old little boy, and Nora, a 7-year-old little girl. She crossed from Sonora to Arizona, and she crossed the only way she could because poor people cannot get visas. So when people tell you, why don't they just get in line? What line? There is no line. So she crossed. She crossed with an unethical smuggler, like many of them are, and we're opposed to that, of course, and a group of migrants. And what happened was they ran out of water. The smuggler said, you're slowing us down, you gotta cross on your own. She left her behind with two of her children. She literally died in the arms of Jesus, her 15-year-old son. And his sister Nora was watching this. Two children in the middle of the desert were wandering around with their dead mother there. Thank God the Border Patrol found them and sent them back to Mexico. Their grandfather, Cesario, who's from Zacatecas, says, I don't want to leave my daughter out there. So he went out looking for his daughter. He found one body, another body, another body, before he found the body of his daughter. So if Cesario can find 3 other bodies, how many bodies are out there? We think it's approximately 10,000 people that have died. Not only men, but also children. Marco Antonio Villaseñor, he died. He was a 5-year-old little boy. And when he ran out of water, he asked his dad for water, but his dad didn't answer him. So he asked 17 other men. They didn't answer him, because all 18 men had died, including Marco Antonio Villaseñor in the back of a semi-truck in Victoria, Texas. This is the real story of what's happening right now. It's inhumane, and we can do better than that as a people. We are a great people, and we are a great nation. There's a lot of misinformation that's out there, and we've heard some hateful terms even in the discussion today. Sucking in, homegirl. This type of terminology to dehumanize people is unacceptable. Jose Luis Cisneros was attacked by 3 American kids, a hate crime, which is at an all-time high right now in the United States. We see the vigilante groups like the Minutemen, which President Bush has called vigilante hate groups. Today's like yesterday. 2nd and 3rd generation immigrants, and half of them are not from Mexico. It was referred to Mexican immigrants. Half of the undocumented people are not from Mexico. They come from other parts of the world for economic opportunity. They assimilate. They learn the language, just like you did in the many years that you've been here. There was a man that said, they're not learning the language. They're not assimilating. They want to just practice their own culture. We got to stop them. That man was Benjamin Franklin, talking about the Germanization of the United States. This has been going on for many, many years. There's 200 million plus undocumented people in the world. Only 4% of them live in the United States. And of those 12 million, a third of them came here legally and their visas expired. Work, tourist, or student visas. Arnold Schwarzenegger's in that category. Maybe we should have sent him back. But then there's 8 million other people that cannot get a visa. These are poor people looking for a better economic opportunity. They're sacrificing everything coming across the border. 90% of them come for economic reasons. 10% come from for family reunification. They already have a relative living here. As Dan mentioned, it's an economic plus, the undocumented people in this country. They'll tell you that schools and hospitals are closing. They are. We need healthcare reform. We need educational reform. But don't blame the migrants. It's easy to blame the most vulnerable sector of society. 4% of the world's population lives in the United States. 300 million people. Yet we consume over 20% of the world's natural resources. 50% of the world's illegal drugs. 30% of the world's population, environmental damage is caused by American companies. We could do better than that. Crime. The Department of Justice issued a study in which undocumented people are less prone to commit crime and less violent. Criminals are lazy people. Why are they going to cross a border to commit crime? It's legal versus illegal. If we use that premise all the time, we would still have slavery, women could not vote, we'd still have children working in factories. We need to build bridges of communication and not triple fences of separation. What good is it if we gain the whole world but lose our souls? There's 3.5 million people that have marched for immigration reform. Your grandchildren are going to ask you one day, what did you do when they were raiding families at 3 in the morning, when 2 people were dying every day crossing the border? The whole world is watching. Do the right thing. We need humane and comprehensive immigration reform. We're a better country than that. We're a better people than that. And it's important that we practice what we preach. We should love our neighbor. And when we were told to love our neighbor, I'm sure it didn't mean to kill him.
Enrique
Thank you all.
Morones.
God bless you.